Welcome, everyone, to the Institute of Jamaica's Parenting Seminar 2020. Today, we'll be learning all about how we as parents can balance life during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm your hostess, Georgette Francis, and I'll be with you today as we learn all about the strategies of coping financially, socially, economically, and also for special needs learners. So join us on our Facebook channel, on our Institute of Jamaica's YouTube channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much.
Our guest speakers, Ms. Christina Silvera, clinical psychologist, Mrs. Elsa Burton, educator, Ms. Carlette De Leon, publicist and broadcaster, Reverend Dr. Raykar Williams, chartered accountant, Mrs. Christine Stapley Banks, president of the Nathan E. Banks Foundation, Mr. Vivian Crawford, executive director of the Institute of Jamaica, staff of the Institute, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I take great pleasure in welcoming you all to the Programs Coordination Division's annual parenting seminar. Over the years, the division, which is comprised of the East Street and Greater Portmore Junior Centers and the Simon Bolivar Cultural Center, has observed Parent Month by hosting a parenting workshop that provides the improved tips on improving our parenting skills. Parenting may be defined as the process of promoting and supporting the physical, emotional, social, and intellectual development of a child from infancy to adulthood, and refers to the activity of raising a child rather than the biological relationship. This therefore means that once you are involved with children, you are involved in some amount of parenting. During the pandemic, the role of parenting is even more crucial, and parents today, as always, are faced with the daunting task of rearing our children, providing them with opportunities for growth and development, and helping them to be confident and resilient in making choices that will enable them to be conscious and proud of who they are and ultimately become individuals who will make a positive contribution towards the development of our nation, Jamaica. This year, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, our seminar is being held virtually under the theme, Balancing Life During COVID-19. We will examine this theme under the following headings. 1, the psychological impact of COVID-19. 2, managing schooling modalities and blended approaches. 3, caring for children with special needs. 4, online safety for children and adults. And 5, coping financially in the pandemic. We hope that by hosting this workshop, a number of things would be achieved. Namely, 1, parents will be able to access the kind of information and resources that will provide them with some of the tools that will enable them to better function as parents so they can help their children. 2, it will serve to encourage and provide support to those parents who are doing their best and still not getting the kind of results that they are hoping for. And 3, it will serve as a catalyst for those individuals who have been neglecting their responsibilities as parents to decide to have a change of heart, despite the difficulties with which they may be faced, to make a positive difference in the lives of their children. I hope this will be a great learning experience for all of us, and that we will benefit greatly for having participated in this seminar. I therefore once again welcome you to this evening's event as we look forward to a time of sharing and learning.
Good day, everyone. Let us bow our heads for prayer. Dear Lord, we thank you for allowing us to come together in this format to host our parenting seminar, mighty God. in this pandemic. We thank you for the technology that would facilitate this. And dear Lord, as we are going into what shall be shared with us to help us to be better parents, better stewards of our children, mighty God, I thank you, Father, for the time spent by our presenters to share with us. Thank you, O God, that this information will be super beneficial, that it will assist us along our parenting journey. I pray, O God, for each and every parent, each and every child, mighty God, that we, O God, will be what you want us to be, and that we will overcome this challenging COVID-19 time. Jesus, you are awesome and you are wonderful. And we thank you, O God, for this platform. Thank you for all that was put in to make it happen. And I pray that you'll guide the proceedings. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Parenting Seminar 2020, which is put on by the Programs Coordination Division of Jamaica from the Institute of Jamaica. Now, today we have a whole theme of qualified experts to tell us all about coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, we have a very informative program lined up today. Some of the things we'll be finding out is how is it that we can cope financially during the pandemic? How is it that we can see the psychological effect of COVID on adults and children and recognize it, and what we can do about it as parents? Also, how can we support our special needs learners? And finally, how is it that we can keep our children safe at home? So stay tuned. I know you are going to want to hear more about this, and all your questions will be answered in this Parenting Seminar 2020. We have a team of qualified experts here today, among whom is Dr. Raykar Williams, JP, the Reverend Dr. Raykar, JP. He is a chartered accountant with a doctorate in business administration and ministry, coupled with over 22 years of experience. So this man knows what he's talking about. Now, Dr. Williams, he serves as an overseer and senior pastor for the Model Church of God, and he has over 3 branches across Jamaica. He's also the author of 2 books, a Justice of the Peace for St. Catherine, a registered marriage officer for the island of Jamaica, and a past board member of Merle Grove High School. Not only that, he is married to his beautiful wife of 23 years, and together they have produced 3 lovely children. So, his motto, of course, based on all these accomplishments, is striving for excellence. Without further ado, parents, ladies and gentlemen in our audience, please help me welcome the Reverend Dr. Raykar Williams, JP.
So let me thank Miss Francis for such a warm welcome, and it is my pleasure to be here to share with you in this, our parenting seminar for 2020. And indeed, because I'm a parent and I'm struggling with COVID just like you, I am just right there to help you and to also benefit from the process. Now, the pandemic has affected all of us, and this was not our choice. For us to survive these challenges, it means we must take some responsible action. And we must realize that it may not affect us physically, but it will affect us all indirectly. When we look at our economy, we realize that for the April to June quarter, there was an 18% decline. And that tells us that as a country, we are being affected seriously. There are many job losses, many layoffs, many non-renewal of contracts, and I'm sure all of you as parents are feeling this in one way or another. Some businesses have downsized and some businesses have even closed. And then when we think about the government restrictions, some of them are so onerous, but we have to do it for our own good. The impact on us as a household is that we realize that our electricity bills have grown, our food bill has grown, The cost for cleaning items have also increased, and there is greater investment needed for gadgets. Some of us, we need more computers, we need more laptops or smartphones so that we can work from home and our children can also learn from home. And so even internet, we could have, get a little internet from our neighbor and get a little Wi-Fi to make our calls, but now we have to install internet in our own home to have the speed that we need and to get the kind of results that we need. And it is also more expensive to us, and we are finding that our income is either reducing or it is remaining flat. And these come along with some psychological challenges and emotional challenges which my other presenters will delve into deeply. So how do we survive in this type of situation? As a pastor, I can say we can pray. Yes, all of us can pray. But the prayer alone is not going to help us. So there are some more things that we have to do in order to see greater results. So I will want to suggest that as parents, let us lend support to each other. Let us begin to talk through the issues that we are facing, because you're not alone. There are others going through the same challenges or even greater. We could ensure that we do not take out this stress on our children, our spouse, or on our co-workers. So we got to deal with it in a sensible way. I want to share some strategies that we can also zeroing on different areas. How do we reduce the financial stress? I want to suggest that some of us, we could join the credit union, because credit unions are known to give better rates for loans, and they have a wide range of benefits that you will get compared to going through a commercial bank. I want to suggest that we have to cut our expenses. And if you are faced with job loss or reduced income, I want to say that you have to reduce your standard of living. If you don't, pretty soon you're going to be in a state of wondering, how did I get here? Don't let pride get the better of you. For example, there was a time as a youngster when I go shopping, I would ensure that I have a bag to put my things in. But I'm at a stage now when I do my shopping, as long as it can be held in my hand, I have no problem. I am in the spirit of openness and transparency. And that's where, we have moved from pride and can operate in a new dispensation. Also, I want to suggest that we must make budget. Don't just live carelessly. Let us make a plan of how we're going to survive. So based on our income, we can apply the 50-30 20 rule, where 50% is put aside for your needs, such as your mortgage, your rent, your utility bills, grocery, transportation, and for those who drive, for your gas money. The other 30% could be for your wants, such as shopping, traveling, going to the gym, investing in cable so that you can have a little entertainment. And 20%, and this part is very important, is that we must be saving, because when the rainy day comes, when the challenging expenses come and you have to foot those bills, you need some time to draw on your savings. May I tell you, we have to avoid the impulse buying. So make a shopping list each time you're going to do some shopping. You're going to stop at the supermarket, or you're just going to go into the market. Make a list of what you really need and cut your eye past the things that you don't really have on your list. Those with excess money, you can do a little investment, such as buying stock. You hear people talk about shares through the Jamaica Stock Exchange. You can buy some shares, because now some of those shares are going at discounted rates. And when the economy turns, you are going to be surprised at how you're going to benefit significantly from your returns. Find ways to use up what you have in your home before they expire. So get religiously begin to check your expiry dates and look to see when these things are going to be expired, and use them in the order so that you do not have to throw out things that are expired. Okay, so I want to say we have to adjust our meal plans, find creative ways, and those ways that are more cost effective in order to do our dishes. Cook less as well, because we as Jamaicans are prone to eat a lot, and this can then lead to other health issues, so we can control how much we eat. Begin to exercise. Let's ensure that we do our exercise, because this will help with our thinking and our decision making at such a crucial time. Also, we can explore places that are selling good quality but at reduced price, much lower cost. How do we cope with limited finances? Because this is the challenge we are facing. We need to revisit our expenses. Check on the areas that we can cut. So one of them, a major part of our budget, is loan repayments, electricity bills, food. And therefore, instead of buying processed drink, we can actually mix our own drink. And I'm going to be coming back to the expense shortly. Be strategic in how you even buy clothes at this time. In fact, most of us not going anywhere much. So therefore, you can cut back in that part of your budget for this time. Find ways to use up what you have in a creative way so that you can survive this season. Find ways to grow your income. It is said that if COVID didn't bring out the hustling in you, it ain't in you. So in this time, some of us have to find ways to grow our income, but make sure it's legal. Seek a second job if you can, such as even offering to supervise your neighbor's children while they are out for work during the studying at home, but at a cost, right? Talk to your loan institutions, renegotiate loan terms, and even ask for moratorium on your loans. And in those cases, you may have to continue to pay your interest, but the principal portion will be deferred for a while. How do you cope with these limited finances? You can use less space at your home and rent out a part. Maybe a challenge for some of you, but this is a viable option for some of us. Check if your assets can generate income, such as if you can put it through a car rental facility. But you must exercise wisdom, because it could cost you more than what you really earn. Seek good advice at all times, and do not operate on the spur of the moment. Now, for those who are going through unemployment and you're wondering how you're going to make it at this time, I could say go ahead and explore different options that are available and resource places that can help, whether in the private sector or through the government. So some of us are very accustomed to hearing about the PATH program. That's a program that is catered for persons at the lower socioeconomic ladder. There's also food for the poor, but just hearing about the poor, it's a real turnoff. But I can tell you, there are aged persons and different persons at different levels who benefits from this program. So forget about the poor part and seek help if you do need help. Sometimes persons even get their house through the food for the poor. They get some supplies, needed supplies, medical supplies, food supplies, and those are beneficial to you at this time. You can also tap into whatever benefits that the Ministry of Finance is offering, or the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Through the Ministry of Education, there's also financial grants to help your children with their education, and even the JAMVAT program, which is about values and attitudes, that is offered to help your children at the higher level of their studies. You can talk with the NHD for there to be what you call a freeze on your monthly payments for a period. And what you realize is that for the NHD, most of us, our loans are prepaid, because our refunds go against your loan, and sometimes your loan is prepaid in advance to the amount that you really owe. So you can ask for a freeze, and this works well especially with back to school when the time comes next year. But you can do it now as you're going through your challenges. Some of us, we go to church, we pay our offering, but we really don't talk to our pastors enough and to find out what benefits are there for you. You know, as a church, you can't just say we have this available, because even those who are not in need are going to turn up in line to collect. So things have to be done on a case-by-case basis. So feel free to talk to your leaders at your church and see what benefits are available for you at this time. Talk to the counselor for your area, the member of parliament. You know, this is a season where you have to talk your way through. Can't sit in silence and expect that you're going to survive. You must talk your way through. Talk to your school, the schools of your children. See what benefits and scholarships and programs and bursaries that are there that can help you in this time. And also, for those who have your insurance policies, some of them have cash value. See where you can do a little drawdown, but don't waste the money. Do it in a sensible way. Also, for those who have loans, for many of the loans, you have to do compulsory savings. So talk with the loan institutions. See where they can apply some of this to clear your arrears or to defer your payment for a period until your situation has changed. Now, the final area I want to deal with before we take any questions is the area of bankruptcy. Because this situation can drive many of us into what we call bankruptcy. We reach a point where we just can't go anymore. But I want to suggest that declaring bankruptcy in Jamaica is not advised. It's not advisable, because even when your situation has changed, you will find that there's a red tape for you. In fact, when you go to seek some loans and all of that, they will ask you if you have ever declared bankruptcy, and that's a turnoff for you, or the interest rates are going to be very, very high. So bear that in mind. It could even impact your child, your children, as they want to do further studies, because you are blacklisted as someone who has declared bankruptcy. And so we can deal with this by dealing with using up some of the strategies that I suggested earlier, but also we can negotiate with our loan institutions as much as possible, because loans, for me, 50% of my monthly income is on loans. So you understand my challenge, and some of you may be facing that as well. Take steps to reduce or to prevent future debts, because if we are already struggling and we don't deal with it in a responsible way, then our future is going to be even worse. So take steps to reduce future debts or to prevent them totally, and create employment. Use up the skills that you have. Some of you can cook, but you're not go cook and try to earn from it. So use up the skills that you have and try to earn in creative ways. Find persons to partner with, because sometimes as an individual it may be challenging for you to run a business on your own. But if you can find persons with skills that complement yours, you can invest in that and try to create something that will take you further. In fact, they will encourage you and motivate you, as to make it goes better. Seek grants that are available, and also whatever support that is available. And for those who are in your business, there are the small business loans that are available at various institutions, and so tap into those. In closing, I want to just, as I was said, if you need more information, I am available on Facebook and also on LinkedIn. So you can find me by my name. My first name is Rakar. That's Rakar Williams. And you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. Also, I am the managing director of Raj Limited, which is Ray of Joy Enterprise. And one of the core business there is financial and business consultancy, and also catering and counseling and bridal services. So a wide suite of products are available, and you can find me and we talk more. This presentation is catered directly for you as parents, so it is available through the Institute if you do need a copy for further review. Thank you so much, and I'm now open for questions.
Thank Thank you very much for an engaging and enlightening presentation. I learned a lot, but I still have a question. My first question is, some of us have payments that are not debt payments. Insurance, pension, partner, savings. How do you suggest we approach those payments? Because saving is important, but we can't afford it right now.
All right. Well, I would say that each person's situation may be different, varying situations. Because in COVID, there are some people who are earning more, while some are earning less, because it's all about what will work for you. So in terms of our payments, those are what you call fixed payments, such as your insurance. We don't want to miss those because you could find your policy going into lapse. But you can also discuss the matter with your insurers, because there is what we call the cash value that is on the policy. And therefore, if you are struggling for a few months, you could ask that some of the cash value use up to pay those monthly figures. Also, when it comes to saving, some of us would say that we can't, but what we have to really do is try to cut back as much as possible so that we can. For me personally, in the first month of COVID, my light bill went up by over 300%, and I can't figure out. I wrote, and my light was even disconnected 2 times because I insist that I wasn't going to pay the full thing until they have completed their investigation. I did not get a good response, and I have to still pay that, and that cuts into my budget significantly. So for each of us, our situation may be different. We have to identify what are fixed things that we must continue to honor, what we can cut back on. So it's a matter of what strategies we apply to manage our debts as much as possible, and that's why budgeting is important.
Where you spoke about the budgeting. Budgeting, we know, is a very strict thing for most households. Most of it's about a discipline, and sometimes it goes beyond the discipline because it goes to the needs and things that just pop up at a moment, and there are so many things that are popping up now that the budget just goes out the window. But as a parent, how would you advise us to try to get our children on board with this budgeting and this cutting back? How would we pull them into that initiative? Because you as a parent, sometimes you're doing it all alone, trying to say you're cutting back this and that. But how do you communicate this with the children? How do you get them involved in this so that the bigger picture can be achieved? Right.
Well, my presentation should have said that, just that I missed it. So I'm glad you bring it out. It's a matter of using the budget as a way of even instilling some discipline in your children. So even at the family table, you could say to the kids, based on our income for this week, what are the things that we need? And let them be involved in the discussion. For example, with my children, when it's breakfast time, it's a challenge because they don't want this and they don't want that, and the house is full of food, but they don't want it. So obviously we are buying some things that they don't need. And so getting them involved in it and being there to say this is what they would like to see and so on, it helps you to spend in a wiser way. So it's about talking them through the situation and helping them to understand that it is a serious time. And in fact, they may need certain things, but by sitting down and listening to what is happening with the budget, they would say, you know what, mommy and daddy really can't afford it. So I'm not going to ask for this. I'm not going to take this at this time. And so it's about engaging them, being honest, being upfront, putting it on the table. Now, some of us as parents don't really want our children know how much we earn because they will go and talk about it. And sometimes we earn so little bit that we keep this to ourselves. And some of us, we earn so much that we really don't want nobody to hear your salary, you know. I sit in an institution and somebody asked if this was your monthly salary. And the question to me was, boy, the person I earn a whole heap, because of how the question came about. And so in talking to your children, you're really doing the budget, but you're not focusing on the income. So you could look at the expense. This for light, this for water, this for that. How are we going to budget this? We can't pay so much. Last week we spent that. We want to cut this by 20%, and let them be involved in the discussion. Perhaps they'll even work the maths better than me and you. So let them be there to work it out, and let them see, because they will help in even conserving. So when they would just waste and just having the things and wasting it, they will realize that it is expensive, it does cost, and therefore they will be more responsible in how they contribute to the budget discussion.
Thank you very much again, Dr. Williams, for a very informative presentation on how it is that we can manage and survive during this pandemic financially. And as you know, Dr. Williams, he has given us the contact, so you can just rewind a little bit to find where it is that you can get some additional assistance financially as it pertains to surviving this COVID pandemic. Our next speaker is Christina Silvera, who is an associate clinical psychologist with a Master's of Science in clinical psychology from the University of the West Indies. Now, she currently specializes in play therapy, parent training, executive function skills, suicide and self-harm, emotional dysregulation, training, depression and adolescent and mental health. So you see, she's very, very qualified for what she's about to speak about, right? And also she serves as the director of membership for the Jamaican Psychological Society. You can actually find her at 423-8944 if it is that you need assistance. But without further ado, let us welcome Christina Silvera, who will tell us more about how we can cope with the psychological effects of COVID-19. Give her a warm welcome.
My name is Christina, and today I'm going to talk about the psychological effects of COVID-19 on adults and children. So we can basically say that we're in a position of the new normal. Wearing masks, always sanitizing, wiping down our groceries or wiping down our takeout, staying at home, doing more meetings. Some people are unemployed, and even the long lines that we have to wait in. And because it's a new normal, we all think, well, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was getting calls and saying, Jamaicans, we can't adapt. It's hard for us to adapt. I don't think that's true, but I think adapting is hard for anybody, and we found that these extreme circumstances have caused some negative and positive effects on people across the board. So let's talk about what's happening with our adults. Now, we are getting calls about adults feeling overwhelmed with work and family because you're at home all the time. And so for many of you, well, all of you are parents, and so you have your child at home and you have to be helping them to sign on to the Zoom class, checking on them to make sure that they're there and paying attention, making sure that they're only focusing on the class. You also have your work. You also have to find somebody to take care of them if you don't have to work online. You have less or more me time. So for some of us who are unemployed, I hear the calls that they just beat themselves all the time. What are they supposed to? What are they supposed to? And some people have less me time where they have to be focusing on everybody. More meetings, more homework, more calls, just everybody needs them now because of the pandemic. So there's more social media and TV intakes. At the beginning of the pandemic, people were feeling overwhelmed because all you heard about who was dying, who is sick, your likelihood of getting it's COVID. I know now there's one election after the next, one disaster after the next, and there's just so much to intake. And because you don't have so many distractions of work, it's like you're taking in more than before, and that can be overwhelming. There are higher food bills, higher utility bills. This just seems like you're spending more, and for many people, they're earning less because their jobs have cut back on their salaries, and there's increased and decreased productivity. What that means is there are people who are out here thriving in the working at home. They're doing more things, they're on time with their tasks, they are attending all the meetings, they're never late because all they do is just roll out of bed and then roll into work. And so some people really need that face-to-face interaction in order for them to really be productive, because they need to just, look over Susan's cubicle and say, hey Susan, what's going on? And she say, I have this report. And she say, oh, give me the template now. And it's easier than that. Instead, now you have to call Susan, or you're in one meeting after the next. There is unemployment that we've spoken about, and there are some people who are actualizing their purpose, which means that now they're working from home and they have all this time to themselves. They're realizing, well, I really enjoy what I do, like myself, or they're saying, I don't like this anymore. What can I do? They have to reimagine or think through their lives again because everything is so different. So now for children, they're also experiencing two sides of the same coin. So on one side, we have children who are feeling so lonely, feeling bored, they're worried about their friendships, they're getting lower grades, they feel disconnected from the teacher and from their classmates because the teenagers will tell me that everybody in class has their cameras off. And when the teacher, and then they probably say, well, miss, I don't have no internet, I can't turn on the camera or something like that. And so it's harder for them to make friends. For the teenagers who said, oh, I'm going to a new school, it's time for me to make new friends and be a new person, it's even more difficult because how are you going to really connect? Well, they're having trouble connecting with others in their class. And so we're seeing kids that are crying and more irritable and so angry, and parents are saying that I don't know who this person is. They're just so sad or angry all the time. They're staying in their room all the time. They're on the game. They're not talking as much. And then on the flip side of the coin, there are the children who are just blossoming in this. Maybe they were being bullied while they were in school and now there's no bully. Maybe the classroom was overstimulating for them and so now they're at home and they can really focus, and then they have the work of their siblings and parents to help them out. They're not worried about friendships because maybe they were not the best social butterflies in the beginning, so now they are at home playing the games by themselves, reading by themselves, don't have to be worried, they don't have to have any contention with anybody, and so that's the two sides of the coin. But then for most children, what we're finding out is that there is some challenges with screen time and bedtime. So kids are telling us that they're not going to bed on time because they take naps in the day, or they're waking up like right before school starts, and then they're staying up late because they're playing games online and they're watching TV and they have the tablet and the phone and this and the that, and there's just so much to do at night after school because it seems like school is giving them even much more work. And so what is happening is that irritability and those changes that you're seeing in your child also has to do with the screen time and the lack of sleep, because their brain isn't getting enough time to rest, their brain isn't forming in the average way where it would have with the social connectivity that we would get. And then we have more or less family time, and for some people less family time is good, more family time is good, but we're finding out that the interaction between the children and the parents are different in many homes. So for homes where are very troublesome for some children, it is a disaster because now they don't have that break where they would see the teacher and sit down and have people who like them. And then for others, the parents are just even more busy and never home, and so they don't really get to connect in that way. Another population that I'd like to talk about, even though I wasn't asked to, are the adolescents and the young adults. Now, they are a very unique set because they are the cross between the adults and the children, because they are trying to find their foot in this world between independence and dependence. They're trying to figure out who am I, and it's very difficult to do at home. It's supposed to be a time of adventure and friendships and doing new things and exploring new things, and because their brain isn't as mature as us adults, it's very difficult for many of them to adapt and figure out a way how to achieve those same needs of exploration, adventure, and finding out about themselves in this new way. And so we're finding that many young people are having so many psychological challenges just trying to find their foot in the world. They're battling with unemployment, and this is the time where they should be going to the parties and the clothes and, getting a little freedom from their parents. They're supposed to have a little bit more money. Some of them can't cook, but they can't afford to order the food because they have to order the food from somewhere else. School is also a challenge as well. If some of them who were having trouble in school, in-person school, they haven't really figured out how to use the online school to their advantage as well. And because parents are not always the most technologically literate, they really don't know how to help them with that. So based on these things, we're seeing that, and even not only this pandemic, but in pandemics of the past, we know that there is an increase of depression and anxiety symptoms. And this is something that employers and teachers and parents and other children and you as the individual have to remember, because after this pandemic, we're also going to be seeing these things, because it just doesn't go away, because people would have been dealing with this for a while. So employers have to remember that, sometimes if the employee isn't producing the same way they were, like online or before, it means that maybe they need psychological intervention. If they're not showing up to work, or if they look very scared or sad, it's just a part of the process, and it's well recorded, and countries have been reporting it for hundreds of years, right? So now, what are the depression and anxiety symptoms that I'm talking about? So it's the irritability, the crying, the sadness, feeling worthless. So feeling worthless, you ever have a friend and all they do is say bad things about themselves, and they can tell you all the best things about you, but nothing about themselves, or if you give them a compliment, they feel uncomfortable. And so these are trouble sleeping. Either you're sleeping too much, you can't sleep, you sleep and you're waking, you feel like you have lots of energy in terms of, usually you used to be up and about and you're ready to go to the gym, and now you're just tired all the time. Increased fidgeting or slowed movement, so it means that you just always feel on edge, you're always shaking. Have you ever been around somebody and their anxiety just make you anxious? Like they're just fidgeting all the time. For me, I just have to move and go to the other side of the table. I can't manage your anxiety and my anxiety at the same time. No. So what else is there? So they're having difficulties thinking and concentrating and making decisions, right? So this is a person who, or if you are this person who before you could just think of the solution right away, or you could work through it right away, but now you realize, well, I don't know what's happening. I'm distracted by so many things. I'm feeling overwhelmed at all the times. And so whatever is supposed to be making you productive is on the back burner, because the emotional stuff are so much greater. For the weight gain and the weight loss, I know many people are talking about weight gain and weight loss because of being at home, but we have to look at it in terms of the other emotional things. So are you an emotional eater? Do you feel, are you eating a lot? Not because you are now so interested in becoming top chef, but because you just feel so sad or empty, you need to fill that space. Late, if this person is late or missing deadlines, this person was always on time, always the one that was like, hey Suzette, have you given in your report yet? And then Suzette's like, no, I'm just trying to figure it out. So these are some of the anxiety and depression symptoms, and they're all on Google. You can look at them and talk to a professional just to see if you fit in the realm, because we all feel sadness and overwhelm at some points. It's just about how long we feel it and what are the other symptoms and our functioning that comes with it. So how can we deal with it? So for adults, the first thing I would say is follow the COVID-19 protocols. So we found that when you follow the protocols, you feel more in control of your environment, and that is less overwhelming. So if you don't follow it, then sometimes you feel like, oh my God, I went to the supermarket, I forgot to sanitize my hand. You reach all the way home, you forget to sanitize your hand. So try as best to have sanitizer in your car. Maybe sometimes I have a clip on my pants. But try and follow them as much as possible so that you feel more in control. Spend time with family members. And so this means that we have to use the online stuff. And so most of us are now more technologically literate. And so use the Zoom, use the Skype, use the, what else is there? Microsoft Teams and the Google Meet. There are so many of them. Use them. Put your family up. It's not the same as hugging and kissing, but not many things are the same right now. And so we just have to learn to adapt and keep in touch with them, because we can't do this all by ourselves. We just won't survive. Well, most of us. Exercise at least 3 times a week for half an hour. It doesn't mean that you need to be going out cycling or running. Just going for a walk, putting on a YouTube video, doing yoga, doing some stretches just for half an hour, just keeping your brain and your body active is very important to manage your emotions and to just manage your own sanity. A healthy diet filled with vegetables and fruits and protein, it just means that we have to eat healthily, and everybody knows how to eat healthy. We drink some water. Some people eat Burger King and KFC every day. Maybe this time or today we get a sandwich that has the lettuce and the tomato as opposed to just the meat and the bread. Getting adequate sleep every night. So it means trying to fall asleep at the same time, going to your bed at the same time every night. Prioritize self-care. And so when I say self-care, everybody always says, but I don't have any money for a massage or a weekend getaway. But what self-care really is doing something for a period of time that has no requirements on you. Nobody needs you to do anything. There's no deadline, there's no timeline. It's just you and yourself doing something that you enjoy. Watching TV for half an hour or for every night at a particular time. Talking to your partner, going to exercise, just something that makes you feel good. And the next thing is ask for support. So when we're overwhelmed, we don't have to deal with it on our own. Some people feel like, well, nobody else can manage our stuff. But there are paid professionals like myself, and then there are your friends and family who can give you advice. And even if you don't want advice, you can just tell them that I just want you to listen. And that is support. The next thing is the stop, ground, and reboot. So I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed, and I know that you know what it feels like to be overwhelmed. There are lots of things going on in our environment, and sometimes we just need to take a break, just pause for a moment, just step away from whatever it is, take a deep breath, walk away 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then come back to it. And I will guarantee you will realize that once you're able to just step away and collect yourself and come back, the solutions will come. And even if the solutions don't come, the feeling of overwhelm won't be as high as before. So for children, the first thing that I would say, and the most important thing, is giving them unconditional love. Unconditional love means that whether you do bad or good, I love you. You're my child, I love you no matter what. You're my student, I love you no matter what. And so oftentimes when parents punish their children, children can leave whatever the confrontation was feeling unloved. So you must always make sure that your child knows that you'll always be there for them. Help them to develop good sleep hygiene. So this means that no screens at least 1 hour before bed. It means that we're trying to make a good bedtime, and then they might say, I can't fall asleep. But I guarantee you, at most 2 weeks of putting them in the bed with no screens at the same time every night, that's gonna be their new bedtime. Trust me, I was up until probably university. I wasn't falling asleep at 7 o'clock from I was a baby. It just works, right? Providing a balanced diet. Some kids don't like water, but if you give them at least 1 glass of water a day, they will begin to like it. Water is important. Vegetables and fruits are important. And parents say, well, he's just very picky about what he eats. He doesn't want this, he doesn't want that. And so as a parent, you have to hide it. You have to hide the spinach or the broccoli in the mac and cheese. You have to hide the beans in the chips. You have to hide the food. Make them be a part of making their meal, making their smoothie, and that will increase their balanced diet. Facilitate activities that get them up and moving. Screens alone. Okay, sorry about that. Screens alone are very harmful to the development of our children. And so we have to make sure that they're doing other things, physical activities and non-screen things that are important. Make sure they're drawing, going outside to play football or basketball, going for a walk, bring them on your walk, doing the is very important. Is very important for their development. Initiate activities that help them to socialize with others. So many of the parents I work with, they're initiating Zoom play dates. So where everybody comes on and they have a plan and all the parents are a part of it and the kids are online playing together. Or there is family time where you're playing games and talking or watching TV together or eating dinner together. These things are very important so that we have that social part of it. Because remember, school was not only for the academic part. It was also for the socialization and the learning pro-social skills. And so that is now limited here, and so we have to push that into their schedule. screenless time. So that means that let us try and see if we can get them as many hours without screens that they do have screens. So I talked about the no screens at least 1 hour before bed, but we can also talk about instead of playing the game for all of the hours after school, maybe you can go and draw something or come and help me cook or come and tell me about today or something where we don't need the tablet, we don't need the phone, we don't need the computer. And we also have to teach the children about self-care. Self-care is also important. They need to do things that they enjoy. I know around grade 6 and grade 4 and high school that we want school, but that doesn't make for a well-rounded individual. We must make the children do things that they like to do, play their games, talk to their friends, just so that we can give them a little bit more happiness. The last advice that I will give to everybody is to look to the future. And this basically means, what do you do now? The pandemic has caused a new normal, but what have you done to help yourself during this pandemic and even after? Have you learned a new skill? There are so many free courses online, free books online, free pamphlets online, websites online with free advice that you can learn new things. There's YouTube, and I know most of us are familiar with YouTube, that teach you to do new things all the time. Have you learned to do something new? Practice your talents. Are you good at speaking? Have you looked into how can you be a better speaker? Find a niche market. Dr. Raycard spoke about starting a business. So maybe we have to look at what have you looked at it? How have you been inconvenienced by this pandemic? Can you formulate a business based on this that can thrive after the pandemic? Look online, see what is out there in first world countries and see how you can bring it to Jamaica and make a better life for yourself. Help someone. So we spoke about helping other people, but helping someone is really important. It gives us a time to stop focusing on what is affecting us and just focus on somebody else. And that can do so much for making us feel so much better about ourselves. And lastly, work on your weaknesses. We all have weaknesses. What have you done to improve on them? What have you done to make yourself a better person? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that very interactive presentation, Miss Silvera. And of course, parents, you heard where you can reach out to her. Once again, her email is kadmassociate@gmail.com. So you can reach out to her for additional information. Now, we're going to be moving on in our presentation.
Good morning or afternoon, whichever time this presentation is being aired. My name is Christine Stakely Banks, and I'm first and foremost the parent of Nathan. You see his picture behind me. Right there is a little one in orange, who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy when he was 9 months old. I am also an author, special needs parent advocate, and I am the founder of the Nathan Evans Foundation, a non-profit organization in Jamaica that works for the participation, empowerment, and inclusion of children with disabilities. And today, I have the distinct privilege of talking with you for a few minutes about coping with these times of COVID whilst raising a child with special needs. I want to take this opportunity to thank my friends at the Junior Center for this invitation to participate in your 2020 Parenting Summit. I know that COVID has shifted entirely the way that we relate, because I always look forward to the Hush Symposium every year and for the great work that the Junior Center is doing. And so today I'm tasked to now talk to my screen as I prepare this presentation for you. I'm going to share from the collective wisdom of medical professionals, collective wisdom of other parents, and I'm also going to share from my experience of raising my son with special needs. Some, very important tips that I think, would be very supportive to you. Some of it you may already know, already be doing it, but it is okay because we are reinforcing. Because, as a parent, sometimes you do something, but you're not so sure because you do it by instinct. And so hearing that is something that you should be doing just really helps it to resonate in your mind so that you can be more intentional about what you're doing. I'm also going to, at the end of the presentation, just share with you about an upcoming support that we have in store for you, which is the virtual parenting summit, which takes place later this month into early December. And so I'm going to share my screen now with you so I can take you through the visual of the presentation. All right, so here we are. I've already shared. I want to also introduce this new brand. You're going to be seeing it a lot, Raising Special Needs. It is the international brand for the Nathan Ebanks Foundation that will allow us to function outside of Jamaica, because one of the things that I've come to recognize is that the issues of special needs and the struggles are not just our struggles as Jamaicans. I'm part of a Caribbean-wide group that has 30 Caribbean countries represented through organizations that support this particular special needs community. And I've been doing a lot of training in Dominica over the last 2 months, and I've had people from Trinidad and Nevis and St. Lucia, St. Vincent in Guyana, in particular, being part of these training experience. And when parents share their journey, I could close my eyes and it would be us in Jamaica, it would be me in Jamaica, and it just really helps us to understand that it is one story. And so I've introduced myself to you already. So I'm an author, speaker, and a special needs advocate. That's my lovely family. This young man right here is Mr. Nathan, who got me started in this work. And so to take you back a little bit, I just want to share the journey with Nathan. Nathan was born at 37 and a half weeks, and he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy when he was 9 months old. He was diagnosed because him being my fourth child, I recognize he had some major issues in hospital. He had a condition that required emergency surgery when he was 2 days old. And it was touch and go for a period of time, as we didn't know if he would live or die. And thank God he did survive it. And we left the hospital with him 24 days after he was born. What we didn't know was that because of what he's been through, that this would now put him at risk for developmental disabilities. But I did observe that when Nathan, and I want to share some of the early pictures, that was Nathan in hospital, and that was him and his two siblings. My other children, the young lady in pink, she was 8 years old at the time. The little one beside him was 4, and my other son was 6. And so it was a really difficult time for all of us. But when we got home with Nathan, we observed that he wasn't developing the way the other children did. And while I do understand that children develop differently and they all have their own pace of development, there are milestones that and time frame within which children should meet those milestones. And so I began to pay attention to my well baby visits. We began to check off the milestone, and at 7 months, we observed that Nathan was still like a brand new baby. And so his pediatrician referred him to a neurologist, who then made the diagnosis of cerebral palsy when Nathan was 9 months old. So that was me back then, and that was Mr. Nathan, and that was when we just got the diagnosis. And like many parents, if not all parents of children with special needs, I found that when the diagnosis came, that's all that came. And so I was gripped by fear. I thought he was going to die. I never understood what the disability meant. And I lived in that space for about 2 years. As a result, I couldn't enjoy my son because every cough sent my heart in panic. Is this it? Is he going to die? Every fever, even if it's a low-grade fever, put me in a panic and in anxiety. And so after 2 years, I decided, you know something, I cannot live like this. And we fundraised and took Nathan to a facility in Florida where he got a interdisciplinary diagnosis with about 14 specialists, where we got parent training, and I came to understand that the disability was not a death sentence. All the disability meant was that he would need some additional support as he was developing. And so that reassured my mind. It reassured my family's mind, because we were all trained. And I came back to Jamaica and I tried. I was just gone for 3 weeks. But when I came back with so much hope, because I now had information, I now had answers. And then I tried to find the different specialists who were recommended to be part of his care team. And I found that many of those speech therapists, physical therapists, occupational therapists, many of those were not available in Jamaica. The few people who were there were booked out for years, and so you couldn't get an appointment. And so that's what led me to form the Nathan Banks Foundation, because we became an organization where we became a bridge. We brought in some of those specialists for a short period of time to train parents, so that we could help our children with some of those development goals, even if we are not trained as an occupational physical therapist or anything like that. But there were things we found that we could do as part of the everyday care for Nathan that really supported his ability to practice the skills that we were trying to get him to develop. And so that the Nathan Banks Foundation evolved as an organization that works for the participation, inclusion, and empowerment of children with disabilities and special education needs. And by extension, we work with families, we work with policymakers, we work with professionals who are working with the children. We do quite a bit of advocacy to help shift the conversation around what is needed to support children with disabilities. Some of you may be aware, as part of our advocacy, we do the Family Expo and Special Needs Results Fair, where we try to empower, or not try, our goal is to empower parents so that they can know some more about their child with special needs, so that they are in a better position to be able to bring that support to their parents. We also do quite a bit of training, capacity development for government agencies that are working with this population to increase their knowledge, their skills, and their practice in creating more inclusive programs for children with disabilities. And we provide learning such as this opportunity where we're sharing through this seminar with parents like yourself. So that's just a little bit of us as we move on. So what does COVID-19 mean for the children with, Hadassah call it the additional needs? And you'll hear many things. You'll hear, exceptional needs. You'll hear different needs, whatever it is. My view is that for Nathan, it was never the disability that was a problem for me, because that I get, that I understand. It was understanding what to do. It was understanding what that looked like. It was understanding what was my role as a parent to support him. That's what created the issues for me. And so I tend to focus a lot on the special needs that arise as a result of the disability rather than the disability. And the disability is just a label, but the special needs now are what we focus on in order to understand what kinds of supports that we're going to need to help our children. And so typically, children with special needs already have a lot of things, a lot of barriers. For many of our children, they don't go anywhere without us. And so when they go to school, that's the only place where we are not. And one of the things that's very important for children's development is for them to learn to be by themselves, for them to learn to self-regulate, meaning to function outside of mommy and daddy and outside of the home. Because we must remember that as we're raising our children, we're not raising to keep them to ourselves. We're raising with the expectation that at some point they'll be able to function in the world. And so sending our children out to school is a very, very important a necessary thing for us to do. And so what we have found is that COVID has just shut that down. I remember when COVID just started, Nathan was so excited to be home because, like a typical children, he likes school for the socialization, for the field trips, for the sports day, for the concerts, for being with his friends. But he dislikes school for the schoolwork. And so, and on top of that, the situation in Jamaica where they have to get up very early, or have to get our children up very early in order to make our way through traffic and to get them to school. And so he didn't like that much either. And then he was out for so long, by the time you pick him up and come back through the traffic, it was the end of the day and he would have been exhausted and he would have missed his favorite pastime, which is watching TV. So naturally, whenever there is a day that Nathan didn't have to go to school, he was celebrating. So when COVID just hit, he was delighted when we told him there was no school. And that lasted for maybe a week or two, a month. But as the time dragged on and he was isolated, because our children with special needs tend to be in the high risk category. And so he was isolated. We had to stop a lot of people from coming into our home. So he had a caregiver who would go to school with him. He no longer saw her. So we began to notice some patterns, which I'm going to be sharing with you because the research backs up as to why this is. And I'm going to share a few things that you can do. So what does COVID mean for children with special needs? And that is Nathan, when he was in, I think, grade 4, and his best friend, Layla. Children miss their routines and their friends. He is accustomed to going to school every day and to seeing his friends. He's accustomed to children coming up, especially little girls in his class, and every morning, hi Nathan, and they hug him, and when he's leaving, bye Nathan. He had his friend in the canteen where he hung out, where he would always get that extra snack that they would give him that he didn't have to pay for. And so there was a routine that he had that was now broken. For a lot of children with autism or who are on the autism spectrum, or even children who just have some of those special needs, we know that routine is crucial. And breaking that routine can be tantamount to a meltdown for the child. And so one of the things that we encourage parents to do during this time is to create structure and a daily agenda for your child. In other words, if your child was getting up at 6 o'clock, still get them up at 6 o'clock. If they had breakfast at 6:30, still give them breakfast at 6:30. A lot of schools have gone online, and I know that for us, we couldn't participate because Nathan was already hooked on the screen, and it was really difficult to break that home routine of being on the screen. And so once we tried to bring up a device, he would be swiping it off and taking it off and doing something else and not doing anything and push out his mouth. And so it wasn't making any sense because it was really affecting our relationship. So what we had to do was to now create our own routine. So we would take him out in the morning outside so he could get some fresh air. He didn't like that much, but it happened. And so what I had to do when I took him out, we spread a comforter on the grass and we lay down together. And I would use his, I do little things with him, Nathan. Can you see the leaves? How many leaves can you see? Do you see this shape? And so I was using it to still engage him in a very critical way, but at the same time, allowing him to get some outdoor time. Some of the days I would have his tablet with me and we would take pictures and selfies, and he would always want to post those. And so we post those selfies. On his birthday in May, we did a Facebook Live birthday party, so some of his friends who couldn't see him could participate. So what we need to be doing in this time is helping to normalize as much as possible the time, the activities of the day for our children. Some children may become very hyperactive. And what I mean by that, for instance, when they're at school, based on the structure of school, there is a part in their day when they would have whether some quiet time, whether for younger children it's reading circle, whether it is nap time, for the older children, whether it is an activity that they get that allow them to calm themselves. When they're at home, they're not burning off that energy when they're indoors. And so all of those daily routine of school, the PEs, the moving from class to class, the activities that kept them moving, they're now sitting in the same position. And so they have all of this extra energy. And on top of that, if they're getting too much screen time, which I confess was happening for us, because Nathan was just always in front of the TV because Dad had to work, I have to work, his siblings have school. And so it became really difficult and we couldn't bring in the caregiver. So it became very difficult for anybody to spend that day with him. So he ended up being plunked in front of the TV, which of course was his preference. And if you ever put him down and don't turn on the TV, that become an issue. And so we were noticing that he was becoming very hyperactive. When he was watching the TV program, he would be screaming down the place as his brain was trying to engage with what was going on the screen. One of his favorite programs is a particular church program on YouTube, and that particular pastor, she screams, and when she screams, you hear the sound traveling from the tip of her toes, and he was trying to mirror that in the space. And so he became very noisy, very agitated, and sometimes it may feel very boisterous. And so what we had to do was put him back on a routine. So we had to break up that TV time, and we had to create some quiet time where, I got a floor mat and we put him down on the mat, but we turned on the radio because we couldn't move him from the activities of TV to just quiet. He didn't accept that, and the brain needs to have some stimulation. So what we did, we just turned on the radio. And so we also had to be strict with his bedtime because he didn't want to go to bed now anymore because he's not going out, he's watching TV all day, he's rested, and so there was no need to go to bed. And so we found that his bedtime was being disrupted. He didn't want to leave the screen to go eat his meals. And so we had to set regular time. And I remember one of the days, when we were having breakfast together, because that's one of the joys of COVID is that we do the family meals together again because everybody is home doing whatever they're doing from home. And we were having breakfast and we set him, this is breakfast time, and he pushed himself away from the table and he folded his arms and he told us, I'm not having breakfast. Just by his expression, he pouted his mouth and he turned his head away and he squeezed his mouth shut and he tried to feed him. And so we just said, fine, but you're not going back to what you were doing until you've eaten. And so he wandered around the house, pushing his wheelchair with his feet. And then we put him down on the ground. And when he realized we were serious, he indicated that he wants to eat. And so he took a few bites. And our goal for that was to get him to recognize that this was a time for breakfast. So he took some bites and then he went back. We took him back to his regular routine. But we found that by the time he went back, because he had taken a few bites, then, the hunger was woken up, as we say in Jamaica. And so he now, was able to go back. So it is important for us as parents. I know it can be tiring. I know, when you have so much going on with you to now take on, these additional disruptors to your day, and just day in, day out can be very difficult, but it is important. And once the children pick up this routine, which is what has happened with Nathan, we found that the rest of COVID lockdown has been a much smoother time for us. So children may, as part of their acting out with what the shift that has occurred, become destructive. They may start fights with siblings, and they may become even violent, at times. And I don't know if I should tell you this, but I will, because Nathan's older sister, she loves him to pieces, and she kisses him too much and hugs him too much, and sometimes he doesn't like that. And we were feeding him on the table, and there was a dinner knife that was on the table, and she came up and she was kissing him and stuff, and he just picked it up and went like this. We didn't even know he could do that. And so we recognized that he too was saying, listen, just get off of me. You know, I have you guys in my space day in, day out. I'm not getting any breaks from you guys. Just give me a break. And so I love this recommendation that is made by Professor Ethan Karim, head of division of pediatrics at the Hadassah Medical Organization, which is one of the organizations that serve children with special needs that I pay attention to. He says to present this, he recommended making sure children get more exercise. So how can you arrange some sporting activity at home? And don't leave them unsupervised. I know that one is hard, but how can you, in what you're doing, position yourself so that you can keep an eye, especially if there are multiple children. But some of the things that we do exercises on the floor, we take him for a walk in the neighborhood, and you know, we push him. I exercise and my family exercise, and so we're using the weights, and we see he will roll over on the floor and pick up a weight, and you know, that kind of a stuff. Of course, you have to supervise them with that. But the intention is to help them to channel the energy. And so it is important that we keep them moving. One of the other measures that I'd like to talk about is and that's Mr. Nathan again, it is about helping the children to become desensitized to wearing the mask. For children with special needs, most of our children come with a lot of sensory issues. And in order to help them to deal with these sensory issues, we have to help them to become accustomed to wearing masks. So what we do is daily we talk to Nathan, we tell him that, you know, the COVID-19 is here, we tell him that it can make him sick without oversharing too much details, and it can also make him make other people sick. And so in order to protect himself and to protect others, we wear a mask whenever we're going out. And we kept doing that. And so even if we were taking him for a drive out, because we did that as well to kind of break up him being in the house all the time. And if we were taking him for a drive out, we would put on his mask. And I remember one day, about 3 or 4 months into COVID, we were taking him out and we hadn't gotten around to the mask yet, and he pointed on his nose. Nathan is nonverbal, meaning he doesn't have speech. And he pointed on his nose to tell us, where is my mask? He sets himself also as a mask guard at home. So wherever he sits, he is able to see others when they're leaving the house. And if anybody is leaving and you haven't put on your mask yet, he calls your attention to your mask. So we have to be sensitized. It was really funny when we just started putting a mask on him, because we would put it on his face and he would go until it gets into his mouth, and then he starts to chew it until it wasn't covering up his face at all. So we had to teach him how to wear a mask. And what we started doing, their face shield, the PPE face shield, we have found that also an easier way to get him covered, because if you won't keep on the mask when you put the shield around his head, then it is protecting him and it is protecting others from getting at him. But we've got to prepare our children and help them. Sometimes one way of also getting them to like the mask is to choose their favorite colors, and there are so many options that are out there, their favorite cartoon character, you know, their favorite design, and so it makes it their own, you know, that they actually enjoy wearing it, and they also see you wearing it. Another thing about wearing a mask is it's important to teach them expression, and so what you can actually do, because when you're covered up in the mask, you can't see if somebody is angry or if they're smiling. You can't see that expression because a lot of it is hidden in here. I recall being on the road once and came out of a store and somebody passed and waved, and I waved. I had no idea who it was because the mask was on. And so it was after the person got home and said, "Boy, I saw you today," and I just waved. I'm sorry, I didn't get a chance to stop. That's when I realized who it was. So what you can do with your child is you can do it as an exercise, once a day, where you put on the mask and what expression am I having? Am I happy? Am I sad? And just get them to begin to look into the eyes and see what's going on in the eyes. And it doesn't matter if your child has intellectual disabilities or Down syndrome or autism spectrum, if they're not listening, if it appears that they're not listening, if it appears that they're not looking, it should not stop you from doing this practice, because we take in so much information, not just with our eyes, but with other things, and repetition is important. So another thing that has come up for a lot of parents who've asked me is, should I still take my child for their wellness checkup? Is it safe to take my child for his or her immunization? What should I do if I think my child has COVID or has been exposed? Where should I go? Should I go to the public hospital? These are genuine concerns, and it is concerns that affect all of us, because you don't want to go to the hospital and then there's no protocol in place to deal with your child who has autism or is on the autism spectrum, or your child who might be blind, or your child who may be deaf. You don't want to have to take them through that ordeal, but at the same time, you want to be safe. So in talking to my son's pediatrician, and we actually did a video on that, which is on our YouTube channel, Raising Special Needs, and I will share that with you at the end. And he advises that you stay close to your child's pediatrician or clinic. It is good to have a thermometer at home. We got one of the digital one, and once Nathan looks a little flush, we tend to take his temperature to see if anything has changed. Because if you're talking to your doctor, you're going to need to be able, your child's doctor, you're going to need to be able to say to the doctor that I did not, the temperature was here and it moved to here. You're going to need to be able to say the child was coughing and whether the cough was wet or dry, because the doctors will start with a clinical assessment of what's going on to determine whether you need to take it further. So it is very important for you to do that. You can also take advantage of telemedicine. I've seen a lot of doctors, our doctors are now doing that. My personal doctor has moved to doing telemedicine. And so in the event of anything, I don't have to physically get up and go out, because sometimes that's difficult when you have to be working with your children at home. Stay calm and breathe. Very important, because our children get their cue from us. And so if we're anxious, especially with what's going on and what is wrong with these people and why they're not wearing the mask and they're infecting the whole world, and we're going to go back to a lockdown, and I may lose my job, your children picks up on all of that and they will reflect it back. So it's important to stay calm and breathe. So another activity that you can add to your schedule is just to, maybe once in the morning or in the afternoon, you just sit down and just do some deep breathing together. You put your hand on your stomach and you blow a bubble in your stomach to get it to, and you just breathe and just teach them to do that. And if they're appearing agitated, you just kind of rest your hand on your child's stomach and just sweetly breathe. Inhale, exhale, just breathe. And breathing the breath has a calming effect. And that is also a good method, because we've got to also maintain and manage our mental health as well as the mental health of our children. Be honest and accurate with information. Children often imagine situation and the whole world is dying and it's worse than it is. So provide them with information that is appropriate to their age. Don't go over into too much detail. Don't tell them Miss Jane down the road, remember her? Well, she died, but her daughter survived. We don't go into that level of details with them. We just, give them enough details to tell them, we're safe, we are here. Yes, grandma is safe, your auntie is safe. If they need to talk to grandma or auntie, let them do that, so that they can be calm. And explain the step, as long as we are covering our nose and we are, wearing our mask and we are not going out and be exposed with people and we're not gathering, then we're okay. And most importantly, stay up to date to the facts. I want to share, UNICEF Jamaica has done some phenomenal videos on COVID and managing COVID for children, parents of children with special needs. I invite you to go to their website to take a look. I talked a little bit about the mental health. Some of the things that you may see are some new behaviors, and what was suggested by the Center for Disease Control is that for preschoolers, you may see a resurgence of thumb sucking, bedwetting, clinging to you, loss of appetite, fear of the dark, and regression in the behaviors. That's expected. And so you should talk to your doctor, your child's doctor about those, so that you can together plan on what to do to help combat them. For children in elementary, we're talking about from grade 1 to grade 6, irritability, aggressiveness, clinginess, nightmare. They may not want to go online for school. They may be afraid for the schools that are open to go out. They may not want to be among their friends. And so just be mindful of them. And for your older kids, sleeping disturbances, agitation. My older daughter is in this conspiracy theory, and I have to really try not to roll my eyes when she gets going, because I realize that it's her way of processing. So what I tend to do is to have conversations with her to support her through that. And so I just want to share 2 great resources. This year I published, and just like you, but different, a story about living with cerebral palsy. And it's a story that I wrote when Nathan was in was in K5 kindergarten. And he was having difficulties fitting in with his peers, and because he looked different. And so I wrote the story to share about him and his disabilities with his friends in ways and language that they could understand. And the story was just a hit. The children loved it. It was one of the greatest years for Nathan. And every time Nathan moved to a new class, because the school kept mixing up the students, I would do the story, and the story was always in demand because children could relate to it, and it allowed them to relate to Nathan. And so it is available on Amazon.com. And if you need any other information, I will share my details with you at the end, that you can contact me. The other book is How to Cope, Parenting a Child with Special Needs, and that is a must-have for parents and professionals working with children with special needs. It is a collection of the journey from diagnosis to learning how to cope. It will share from the emotional impact of the disability on the family, but most importantly, what to do. It will help you to be able to identify where you are in the stage, because it is a stage, a process that you'll go through. It will help you to realize which stage you are in the process and to direct you to resources for what you can do. It is a book that it's written by myself, but with the input of a speech therapist and of a special education teacher and several other key specialists. And it's a book I wish I had when Nathan was just diagnosed, but it is a book that continues to be relevant to us as we move through the journey. So both books are available, both in e-format and in print, on Amazon.com. And so I'm sharing that again. And the last thing that I want to share is November 30 to December 3, we're hosting a virtual parenting summit, Special Child, Special Needs. It would be hosted through Zoom, on YouTube, on Facebook, YouTube Live, and registration is required because we have some great resources to share with parents. And if you go to the Nathan Evans Foundation website, the information is there, but we have a great lineup. We have Dr. Heps, who is a sensory integration specialist, who is going to be walking us through how to create sensory spaces at home with no money, so that we are able to help regulate our children, to bring down some of that hyperactivity that we're talking about, and to help, to get them back into a routine with their body. We have the speech therapist who's going to be going through how to create reading activities and use games to really help our children to continue to develop their language skills, their communication skills, their critical thinking skills. We have an occupational therapist who is going to be walking us through how to begin the process of potty training for some of us who are at that space, but how to help our children develop self-help skills. And so we have looked at just a range. We have a hairstylist who's going to talk to us about how to maintain our children's stresses, our hair during this COVID, how to take care of it. Stress as a way of impacting the health of all hair as well as our children's hair. For many of us who still have an outward-facing job like myself, I do a lot of speaking, and so I had to learn how to do my makeup. I had to learn how to do my hair because I can no longer go to the hairdresser to do that. And one of the most amazing sessions that we're going to have, we have Elaine Wind, who's a self-leader coach. She is going to be taking us through a self-leadership exercise in terms of how to just reclaim your space, reclaim your family, and reclaim your possibility in spite of what's going on with COVID. I'm forever grateful to Elaine because it is through her support like that I'm able to even manage, that I'm able to even do the kinds of stuff that I'm doing. And so we have all of these great resources to share with you. Registration is now open. The registration form allows you to tell us what are the issues you are having, so that as we are delivering the presentations, then we're able to hit the nail on the head for you. Additionally, when you register, there are lots of free gifts that we're going to be giving away. It's a free summit, lots of free gifts, plus each day several parents will get what we call the golden tickets that would allow them to come into the Zoom meeting with the speakers and ask questions directly. Also, you will get, by registering, you would now get access to the workbook, the accompanying workbook that is part of the summit support. And so we invite you to register, but share it with your child's school, share it with your family members, because there's no limit as to the number of people who can attend, because all of this information is designed to really provide you with support and to connect you with network and information that will help you to be the best parent that you can be. So with that, I would normally, and that is again on the Parenting Summit. It's available on our website. If you haven't done so yet, like us on Facebook at Raising Special Needs and Nathan E. Banks Foundation. Also like us on YouTube at Raising Special Needs, and Instagram, Raising Special Needs and NEF Jamaica. And when you do that, it will allow you to stay informed. We also have some great videos that we have created, especially for you on our Raising Special Needs YouTube channel. And so we invite you to head on over to like, subscribe, and share so that you can be kept informed. So my next question would be question and answer, but we can't have that because it's a pre-recorded video. So I thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this presentation. If you do have questions, you can email them to me at raisingspecialneeds@gmail.com. That's raisingspecialneeds@gmail.com. And you can also reach out to me on Facebook under my name, Christine Stapley Banks, or you can reach out on Facebook at Raising Special Needs or NEF Jamaica, and I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So my final words to you is COVID is here. It has disrupted life as we know it. But I do believe that we can grow through this as we go through this together. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the seminar. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to our Parenting Seminar 2020. Join us on all our social media platforms for the Institute of Jamaica on YouTube and Facebook. Please subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell for more great content. Join us again for part 2 of our seminar, Balancing Life During COVID-19. I'm your hostess, Georgette Francis. See you again next time. Walk good.